Just as I entered the banquet hall, I received a message from Vera. It was a screenshot from Facebook, posted by my fiancé Daniel 10 minutes earlier. "This little bud is going to bloom for me tonight." The picture showed a beautiful young girl, shyly leaning against him. I put away my phone and looked up to see Daniel. He was holding a girl with black hair, fair skin, and a white dress, her almond eyes clear and innocent, looking absolutely pure. She was the same girl from his Facebook post. Daniel was charmingly making her happy, holding a dazzlingly large diamond ring, about to put it on the girl's finger. "Daniel, are you serious about this?" someone joked. Daniel lazily smiled and pinched the girl's tender face. "Yes, I am settling down." "Daniel's really not playing around anymore?" "No, it's not fun anymore." The moment Daniel's words fell, everyone at the table saw me. Daniel just glanced at me indifferently and then looked away. His young girlfriend was a bit curious. "Mr. Daniel, who is she?" "She's so pretty." Daniel sneered, "My future wife." The young girlfriend immediately changed her expression, pushing Daniel away in anger. Daniel simply embraced the girl, causing her to blush adorably. Everyone at the table looked at me with a mix of pity and sympathy. It was the 3rd month of my engagement with Daniel. This girl was his 4th girlfriend since then. Strangely, this time, I felt no desire to be angry. "You guys have fun, I have something to do and will leave first." I withdrew my gaze, preparing to leave. Daniel casually looked up at me. His eyes darkened as he played with the girl's hand in his arms. "Zoe." I didn't stop walking. "If you walk out today, our engagement is over," he said. His words actually made me laugh. I stopped, turned around, and looked at him. Daniel saw me turn back and his lips curved. "Come here, sit next to me." "Daniel." I looked at him steadily, realizing that I didn't like him as much as I thought I did. "Let's call off the engagement." "Zoe, what are you saying?" Daniel's eyes suddenly darkened, and he pushed the girl on his lap away. "Mr. Daniel." The girl almost fell, complaining in dissatisfaction. "Get out," Daniel commanded without looking back. The young girl, frightened, ran out crying, her tears streaming down her face. The room fell into a stunned silence. I looked at Daniel, as calmly as if I were just discussing what to eat for the day. "Daniel, I've made up my mind. Let's end our engagement." As I left, I faintly heard the sound of something breaking, but I didn't look back. Stepping out of the banquet hall, into the intoxicating spring night outside, I suddenly exhaled a long breath of murky air, feeling an unprecedented sense of freedom and relief. I had applied to the university in the north of the city because of the engagement. For over 3 years here, my world seemed to always revolve around Daniel. My family thought marrying Daniel was a great fortune, but only I knew the bitterness of it all. Vera called me, both angry and anxious. "Zoe, what on earth is Daniel trying to do? Does he not remember he has a fiancé? He just announced that he's throwing a cruise party tomorrow night, with fireworks all night long, to celebrate his new girlfriend's birthday." I interrupted her. "Vera, do you want to go out for a drink?" We met at a bar. Vera burped after a drink and waved her hand at a row of male models in front of her. "Zoe, pick anyone you want, I'm paying tonight." I rested my chin on my hand, seriously sizing up these men. Honestly, they were all quite good-looking, but none of them were exciting enough for me. I waved my hand disinterestedly. Change, not satisfied. "Zoe, what kind of god are you looking for?" Vera complained with a pout. "I bet you, the handsomest male PRs in the whole North City are here." "I want that one." I suddenly interrupted her, looking towards a man who had just come down the stairs. Vera followed my gaze and her eyes widened instantly. "Wow, Zoe, he's a real god." I sat up straight, fixated on the man. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, long legs, an unbeatable figure, but most importantly, that face. Incredibly handsome, with proud and unyielding eyes, hitting all my aesthetic points. You're with me tonight." I pointed at the man, drunkenly stood up and approached him. "What's your name?" The man raised an eyebrow, looked at me with interest, and then spoke, "Alex." I didn't notice that the people who had been standing behind Alex had quietly stepped back. "Want to come with me?" Alex's smile deepened. "Miss Zoe, I'll go with you." I extended my hand to him, and Alex looked down at the engagement ring on my left ring finger. "You're engaged?" I suddenly remembered the ring, felt nauseated, hurriedly took it off, and threw it in the trash. "Single now." Alex smiled slowly. My hand was taken by him. "Miss Zoe, where shall we go tonight?" "Where to?" As I walked aimlessly outside, my parents' words echoed in my head. "Zoe, who allowed you to break off the engagement? How can you be so thoughtless? Go apologize to Daniel right now, do you hear me?" I suddenly laughed, looking at Alex beside me. "Let's go to a hotel, dare you?" While Alex was taking a shower, Vera sent me a lot of photos and voice messages on WeChat. "Baby, I've investigated everything for you. He just started working here tonight. Super clean, I've seen all his medical reports, read them word by word, absolutely safe." Alex came out of the bathroom just as I heard Vera's voice message. I hurriedly turned off the voice message, my ears burning with embarrassment. Alex leaned against the door, a playful smile on his lips. "Miss Zoe, how do you want to enjoy tonight?" I clutched my phone, my fingers trembling, but I pretended to be calm. "That's your job, why ask me?" Alex threw the wet towel aside and walked towards me. He leaned down, his hands resting on the arms of the single sofa I was sitting on. My nose almost bumped into his chest. In a panic, I leaned back to avoid him, but Alex picked me up. "Then Miss Zoe, enjoy tonight, I'll make sure you're satisfied." But things didn't go smoothly. As dawn approached, I sobbed and bit Alex. "I'm going to complain about you, give you a bad review, it hurts." Alex's forehead was covered in fine sweat, he smiled helplessly and kissed me again. His voice was a bit hoarse. "Sorry, I didn't do well." "What's the use of apologizing? Your skills are so poor." I glared at him, my eyes red and swollen, feeling extremely wronged. Alex's kisses landed on the wet marks at the corners of my eyes. "Baby, give me another chance." Actually, he was also innocent. After all, it was my first time, and even with high experience and skill, pain was inevitable. But I was being unreasonable. "If it hurts again, I will complain and get you fired." Perhaps because it was my first time indulging like this, my sleep was restless. I even woke up earlier than Alex. The morning light shone through the partially drawn curtains. Alex's arm was tightly wrapped around me, his breathing steady, deeply asleep. I looked at his face for a while before gently moving his arm away. But then, I saw the dragon tattoo on his left wrist. I was almost in disbelief, stunned. Because of Daniel, I had heard a bit about the affairs of prominent families. Such a dragon tattoo only appeared on the wrists of the heirs of the Lewis family. And the Lewis family had a terrifying underworld background, virtually controlling everything in these two cities. Not only had I mistaken the heir of the Lewis family for a male model, but I had also slept with him. Thinking of the horrible fates of women targeted by the underworld, as I had seen in the news, I didn't care about anything else. I didn't even shower, just hurriedly dressed and ran out of the room, booking a flight back to Beijing. When Alex woke up, he instinctively reached for me but found only emptiness. His sleepiness vanished instantly. Sitting up, he saw the pearl earring left on the bed. A light smile played on his lips. Zoe, she really was unexpected. Alex picked up his phone and made a call. "Find out where Zoe is now. Once you find her, let me know, I'll personally bring her back." Alex hung up, his face cold. As he got out of bed, he also pulled down the blood-stained sheets. Approaching graduation, most of my classmates were interning outside the school. I had also taken leave from the university. After returning to Beijing, I didn't go home but stayed in a hotel. However, on the second night, when I went downstairs to pick up a takeaway, I saw two men in black jackets in the lobby, which felt odd. Sometimes a woman's intuition can be very accurate. At that moment, Alex received a call from Beijing. "Young master, we've seen Miss Zoe. But she seems to have noticed us, looking very scared and panicked. We're worried that if we continue to follow her, she'll be even more frightened, so we haven't made a move yet." Alex clenched his phone, standing on the top floor of a skyscraper. The entire city lay at his feet, he had everything, yet he felt an emptiness that couldn't be filled. Zoe had been like this since their first meeting. He looked down at the glittering lights below, lit a cigarette, and said in a deep voice, "Stay in Beijing, keep an eye on her situation. Inform me immediately of any developments, don't delay." Alex ended the call and walked back to his desk. He opened a drawer and saw the pearl earring. Involuntarily, he remembered that night, how Zoe tearfully accused him of poor performance, threatening to complain about him. He couldn't help but laugh again. Since the encounter with those two suspicious men, the following days were calm. After staying in a new hotel for a week without incident, I finally relaxed. Then it suddenly hit me, in my rush to leave, I had completely forgotten about contraception. My mind went blank. I lay on the bed for half an hour before finally calling Vera. "Zoe, are you okay? I heard Daniel and his young girlfriend have split. He was calling me yesterday, asking why you haven't been to school. It seems he wants to get back with you." As soon as the call connected, Vera started talking nonstop. After she finished, I sighed softly. "Vera, I'm not in the mood to worry about what kind of grass Daniel is eating. I just want to know, can I get pregnant without contraception?" On the other side of the phone, Vera shrieked as if she was choked. "Ah, Zoe, are you crazy? How could you not take precautions?" I was almost frustrated. Now is not the time to argue about this. What should I do? Go buy a pregnancy test and check. What if I'm really pregnant? "Zoe, you must not be foolish. He's just a male model. If you're really pregnant, you must get it terminated immediately." My scalp tingled. I wanted to interrupt her and tell her that he wasn't a male model but the heir of the Lewis family, Alex. But remembering Vera's loud voice and blabbermouth, I immediately dismissed the idea. "I got it, I'll buy the test later." But before I could buy the test, I started feeling unwell, with a dull pain in my lower abdomen. I found a bit of bleeding in the restroom. It was still a week before my period was due, so it seemed to have come early. But regardless, the arrival of my period meant I wasn't pregnant, and my heart finally settled. Perhaps due to physical discomfort and mental pressure, this period was very light and ended in 2 or 3 days. Meanwhile, Daniel unexpectedly came from the North City to Beijing. My parents sent the family driver to pick me up. I didn't want to go, but I thought it was time to settle things with Daniel. My parents were beaming with joy. Even my grandfather, who had been recuperating in the suburbs, rushed back. As soon as my car stopped, Daniel eagerly came out to meet me. My mother, unable to hide her smile, said, "Zoe, look at you, acting childishly and getting angry with Daniel, and he's still so tolerant and speaking up for you." "Auntie, don't blame Zoe. It was my foolishness that upset her. It's only right for her to be angry." My father immediately said, "Young people love to have fun. It's common for men to flirt around. It's Zoe who's not understanding enough. It's all my fault." Daniel looked at me with tender eyes. "Zoe, I apologize. Please don't be angry, okay?" My parents' expressions changed. "Zoe, that's enough. If you continue, it shows you're being unreasonable and lack manners." "Yes, I'm unreasonable and lack manners. I just don't want to marry a man who's fickle. Is that wrong?" I just said, it's normal for young people to have fun, especially since Daniel has already apologized. I felt a chill in my heart. These were my biological parents. To them, I wasn't a beloved daughter, but a piece of merchandise they could sell at a satisfactory price. Whether I was happy or sad didn't matter at all. I don't want to endure anymore, nor do I want to become a resentful woman. I took another step back. Let's call off the engagement. I already mentioned this to Mr. Daniel in the North City. Speaking of this, I looked at Daniel. Mr. Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, you said that day, if I walk out, our engagement is over. Daniel's expression gradually turned cold. Zoe, let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. After Daniel left, the atmosphere at home became oppressively heavy. My grandfather looked at me with a cold, indifferent smile. No need to say much. We've raised you with great care for over 20 years. 20 million wouldn't be too much to ask for, right? Can't afford it? Then marry someone who can. Someone will be willing to pay 20 or 30 million for you. I was locked in the house. Half a month later, my family began arranging blind dates for me, trying to find a suitable match. Zoe, Vera suddenly tugged at my sleeve, her face pale as she stared at something behind me. The male model you picked that night, he's here. I turned around instinctively, meeting Alex's gaze. In that instant, I felt a chill run down my spine, my back drenched in sweat. Before I could even think, my body reacted faster than my brain. I quickly stood up, grabbed Vera, and ran. I didn't notice the chair in front of me, my skirt caught on the armrest, and I almost stumbled to the ground. But Alex was faster. He reached out, grabbed my arm, and steadied me. Zoe, why are you running? Vera stared at me, dumbfounded. Zoe, how does he know your name? Alex glanced over at Vera, a mere fleeting look, but it was enough to silence her. Fearing that Alex would take his anger out on Vera, I steadied myself and spoke. Vera, go back first, I'll contact you later. Vera seemed to want to say something, but intimidated by Alex's presence, she hesitated. Zoe, then you quickly return to school, don't be too late. Don't worry. After Vera left, I turned to Alex. Mr. Lewis, let's talk. I'm sorry about that night. I was drunk, and I mistook you for. I struggled to find the words. The idea of mistaking a member of the prestigious Lewis family for a male model was a huge embarrassment. Alex didn't send someone to kill me the next day was already lucky. Alex suddenly grasped my chin, anger flickering in his eyes. Zoe, what happened to your face? Startled, I remembered the slap mark on my face. The feelings of hurt and humiliation surged up silently. But what did all this have to do with Alex? It's nothing. I tried to pull away, but Alex didn't let go. Who hit you, Zoe? Tell me. Tears welled up in my eyes involuntarily. My family did it. It has nothing to do with you. Please don't interfere. They forced you to reconcile with Daniel and pushed you into marriage, didn't they? His words shocked me. How do you know? The realization hit me about the two men behaving suspiciously in Beijing. Have you been having me followed? I thought that after that day, Alex's men had left Beijing. But it seemed everything about me was under Alex's watch. Zoe, I didn't have anyone follow you, I was just. Mr. Lewis, I know I was wrong that night, and I apologize. I interrupted him. A man like Alex was beyond my ability to deal with, and I didn't want any further involvement. Alex's grip loosened, his anger replaced by a deeper, sadder emotion. So, what are you trying to say? I'm saying, I'm sorry about that night. Let's just pretend it never happened, okay? I looked at Alex with teary eyes. The family troubles had drained me, and I lacked the energy to deal with Alex. Alex remained silent, his expression darkening. I braced myself and spoke again. If you want revenge, then take it. I accept whatever comes. Revenge? Alex seemed almost amused by the idea, but then his eyes revealed a hint of loneliness. Zoe, do you really want to have nothing to do with me? I nodded slowly. All I wanted was for him to leave me alone. He didn't speak further but raised his hand again. I flinched, expecting a hit, and instinctively turned my face away. His fingers lightly touched the finger marks on my cheek. Zoe, you're still the same as before, not a bit changed, he said. You appear timid and frail, yet you're bold and rebellious at heart. Surprised, I looked up at him. "Mr. Lewis?" Alex gave a self-deprecating laugh. "I must be crazy, Zoe. Crazy to have been unable to forget her. Knowing she was engaged, knowing she had a fiancé, yet still not able to let go. Crazy to have thought of marrying her after that night. But she never liked him from the start, never noticed him, didn't even remember any past interactions with him. Yet he couldn't help but feel heartache and concern for her. Her face injury made him angry. But she didn't need it. His hand slid from my face, and he stepped back, giving me one last look. Zoe, you better hope your life turns out well from now on. I didn't fully understand the meaning of Alex's words. He didn't explain further and left without looking back. At a charity dinner sometime later, my parents somehow obtained an invitation. They tried their best to sell me off, even spending a fortune on a haute couture dress for me. But not long after the dinner began, I became violently ill when the fresh sashimi was served. I vomited uncontrollably. The hosts, fearing it was a food or drink issue, immediately called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. To everyone's surprise, it wasn't food poisoning that caused my vomiting. I was pregnant. The baby was almost 7 weeks along. It was a situation I never imagined I would find myself in. Thinking back, the bleeding I had assumed was an early period was likely just light spotting common in early pregnancy. The baby was Alex's. I couldn't bear to think about how my parents would shamelessly try to extract money from Alex if they knew. "Zoe, whose child is it?" they asked. I laughed bitterly. After the breakup with Daniel, I was upset and went out drinking. I was so drunk I don't even remember who the man was. My father, furious, slapped me twice. I was immediately transferred to a private hospital for a discreet abortion, scheduled for 8 p.m. But no one expected what happened next. As I was wheeled into the operating room, a convoy of luxury cars pulled up at the hospital, led by a Hummer with dual license plates. Dozens of bodyguards in black swarmed out, surrounding the building where I was. Alex, grim-faced and armed, kicked open the door to the operating room. The doctor, about to administer the anesthesia, dropped the syringe in shock. I sat up in surprise as Alex, his face cold, walked over and picked me up. No one dared to stop him. 2 rows of armed bodyguards stood at the door. My parents, terrified, could hardly stand. When Alex carried me out, my father timidly tried to speak, but a single glance from Alex made him retreat into a corner. "Did you two force her to get rid of the child?" Alex asked. My father, unwilling to speak, nudged my mother forward to answer. "Yes, we were thinking of Zoe's best interest. After all, she's still young, and it wouldn't sound good if people knew she was pregnant before marriage." "Yes, a girl's reputation is most important," my mother added. Alex's gaze fell on me. I was still in a daze, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, and looked somewhat lost and confused. "For so many years, I've only ever liked one person, and you, the Cheng family, have repeatedly bullied her into this state," Alex said in a casual tone, his voice light but chilling to the core. "This, sir, Zoe is our daughter, how could we bully her?" My father stammered. "Whether you bullied her or not, I know very well," Alex responded. Holding me, he took a step forward, causing my parents to cower against the wall, with nowhere to retreat. "She will be my wife, the lady of the Lewis family, the future mistress of the house." "The Lewis family?" My father's eyes widened in shock. In that moment, I saw fear, disbelief, elation in his eyes, but all these emotions quickly turned into despair. They had always wanted to marry me off to someone powerful and wealthy, but when their plans came to fruition, they were left with nothing. During the car ride, perhaps due to pregnancy fatigue or the day's events, I fell asleep in Alex's arms. When the car stopped, I woke up groggily to see a brightly lit mansion on top of a hill, as grand as a palace. "Where is this?" "Our home," Alex replied, kissing my forehead softly. "Still sleepy? If you are, you can keep sleeping." I nodded, my eyes closing again, and I drifted back to sleep. Alex smiled helplessly, carrying me out of the car and into the mansion. He took me to a bedroom on the second floor, where I slept soundly, oblivious to everything. Alex stayed in the bedroom for a while before heading downstairs. The house staff, including bodyguards and other workers, were gathered below. Alex looked at them and spoke seriously. "She is my future wife, the future mistress of the Lewis family." Everyone was surprised but listened attentively. "Treat her as you would treat me. If she wakes up, inform me immediately." Alex brought me to the old Lewis family mansion to meet his grandfather, a man of great influence but to me, just a kind and gentle old man. It was then I learned that Alex had knelt for an entire night for my sake. "I've never seen him so stubborn," his grandfather sighed. "I knew if I didn't agree, he would fight me to the end. Better to let him have his way. Seeing you today, I understand why he likes you," he said. But I didn't understand. Alex and I only crossed paths because of that one night's mistake. I wasn't naive enough to believe he fell in love with me because of a one-night stand. 5 months into the pregnancy, my relationship with Alex had progressed significantly. When I invited Vera over, she thought she was dreaming until Alex went to his study. She grabbed me excitedly, her eyes shining. "Vera, since I came to the North City, you've been my only friend, and you're my best and dearest friend. That will never change, no matter what I was like before or what I'll be like in the future." "Zoe, you're so annoying," suddenly getting all emotional and making me want to cry too. Vera said, tears streaming down her face. We both cried, and Alex, hearing the noise from upstairs, nearly panicked. When Alex came downstairs and saw us both crying, he thought something serious had happened. His voice was even trembling a bit. "Zoe, are you feeling unwell?" he asked, pulling me into his arms with concern. "It's nothing, Alex. Vera and I were just having a good time talking," I reassured him. "Really? There's nothing wrong?" Alex glanced at me and then gently touched my slightly swollen belly. "Is this little rascal not bothering you?" We hadn't checked the baby's gender yet, but Alex was convinced it was a boy because of my significant pregnancy symptoms. He didn't really like boys, always telling me he only wanted a daughter who looked just like me. "He's been good today," I said softly, giving Alex a playful glare for always calling our baby a rascal. I worried the baby might feel upset hearing that in my belly. Vera, grabbing her bag, made a hasty exit. "I'm leaving now, Zoe. I can't handle all this dog food." Watching Vera's retreating figure, I couldn't help but laugh again. It seemed like overnight, I had gained the best of friendships and love. "Let her come over less often," Alex suggested as he picked me up and placed me on his lap. "Whenever she's here, you only pay attention to her and ignore me." "That's not true, it was Vera's first visit," I protested. "Still, you can't play favorites," he insisted. "How am I playing favorites?" I asked. "Then kiss me, Zoe. A real kiss, no half-heartedness." Looking at the man in front of me, I cupped his stunningly handsome face, locking eyes with him. In the depths of his obsidian-like pupils, there was only me, just me. A sweetness surged in my heart, and I leaned forward to kiss his lips. Alex's hand weaved into my thick hair, pulling me closer, deepening the kiss. I gave birth to a daughter for Alex, a girl with eyes and lips like mine but eyebrows and nose like his. When she turned 1 month old, we held a beautiful wedding on a picturesque island overseas. Just before the wedding started, I unexpectedly received a call from Daniel. "Zoe, where are you? I miss you. Can I come to see you?" His voice sounded very dejected. "I've just had a baby and am about to get married. If you want to come, don't forget to bring a gift, thank you." There was a sudden silence on the other end of the line. I didn't wait for Daniel to respond and hung up, then blocked the long-forgotten number. Putting down my phone, I stood up. Alex, having placed our daughter in a little carriage, embraced me tightly. "I don't like hearing you call other men's names," he said. Alright, I won't do it again, I promised. I just want the whole world to know that I married the girl I love, Alex said, holding me close and whispering in my ear, Zoe, you have no idea how happy I am at this moment.